Hey, it's Robbie here with Muddy Beards, and today we're gonna get bent all out of shape. Alright, so here's what I'm actually going to be working on today. I am going to be using this. It is a Harbor Freight manual hydraulic, it's a manual pump hydraulic pipe bender, and I'm going to be using it to actually bend some of this. This is just 1-inch Schedule 40 pipe. And I'm going to be using this thing to actually make some fairly simple bends, because what I'm trying to do is make some rub rails for the 2x6 rock sliders that I made in a previous video. So what I'm actually trying to do is make a rub rail, actually something like this. This is my old rock sliders that I had actually made a few years ago, and I really liked the look and the functionality of the rub rail. It definitely helps keep a lot of obstacles away from the body, so that I can prevent a bunch of dents and stuff on my vehicle. Although I don't know if you can see this, it didn't really prevent that one. However, I wanted to get that look and that same functionality with these rock sliders. Okay, well, the first thing I really need to do is I need to measure so that I can get a good idea of where I actually want to mount these rub rails. So this could be different for everybody. For me, I really want it to basically run from the front of the front door to the back of the rear door. And so what I had to do was make some marks. And when I did that, I found out that I want mine to be about 56 inches. So then what I decided to do is I have to figure out actually how much pipe I really need to cut out. So if I cut it at 56 inches, that doesn't account for the bends. And so it will not be long enough if I cut it out at just 56 inches. So here's the solution that I came up with. And that is, I drew a diagram just here on my garage floor. And what I did was I started with the bottom line. I literally just drew out 56 inches. That's the total length that I want it to run along the slider. Okay? And so then what I had to do is figure out how far I wanted it to protrude from the slider, or actually stick out. So I kind of looked at my old ones for a reference, and I found out that they were about 2 1/4, 2 1/2 inch. So I decided to go with about that. And I basically just made lines from here 2 1/2 inches, and I just drew it all the way down 2 1/2 inches, 2 1/2 inches, and I drew another straight line. So now I have the bottom line is my total length that I want, but I want it to stick out about 2 1/2 inches. Okay, and then I needed to figure out the degree of my bend, and I just used a really simple angle finder here, and I was able to figure out that previously I made these bends at around, it was actually about 50 degrees. I think it was supposed to be 45. And so I wanted to go with about that same thing. So I used my angle finder, and I found the exact degree I wanted to, and I was able to draw basically just a straight line. And then what I was able to do is measure how far that bend needed to be as far as where the radius is going to begin. So how far it needs to bend, which I determined was about, sorry you guys can't see that, about 4 inches when I went with about 45 degrees. Okay, and so what I was able to do once I did that, once I made that determination, is I could actually add the length of this, both of those, and then I could measure along the whole top line to actually figure out how long exactly I needed to make my pipe. Again, if I just went by the bottom line, it wouldn't be long enough, but if I measure the 2 ends here, how much it'll stick out, run all the way across the top, because the actual pipe will run this route. And so all I had to do is just measure that, add it all up, and I ended up with my total length. So I need to go ahead and measure that again, double check, and then I can actually cut my pipe to length, and I can show you guys how I'm going to bend it. Alright, well I actually measured a couple more times and figured out that I actually wanted the radius to be actually at about 4.5 inches. That's where I would get the curve that I want, the bend right where I want it to be, and at the angle I wanted it to be. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure there so I have a good solid line that I can see. And I'm using the 1-inch die. And so loading this thing up, I'm going to try to find a good view here. I'm going to get it in here and then kind of show you what I'm talking about. Now, loading this thing up, a buddy of mine actually told me about this trick. I played around with this thing a little bit, and one of the things that I noticed is that if I just put the radius right in the middle of the die and start to bend and then just keep measuring till I get to the degree I want, it would pinch the pipe and it wouldn't look that good. So what I've kind of figured out what to do here is that I'll start the bend right at the radius and I'll start to bend it a little bit, and then what I'll actually do is go back and kind of push it just beyond the radius and bend a little bit, and then come back and bend a little bit, and then go back to my radius right in the middle and complete the bend to the degree. And what I found is that I get a lot better bend that way. Okay, so I've got the bend started on the radius right in the middle, so now I'm actually going to push it just a little bit beyond the radius and just progressively bend it here a little bit. I'm trying to keep my face clear of this thing. Okay, now I got that. I'm going to push it back to the just before the radius. Bend a little bit, making sure it's still all good and straight. Okay, and usually just progressively going back and forth like that, I can now go back to center line and I can bend it some more, and I'm probably going to want to do a test measure here soon to see if I'm close to my angle. So let's see where I'm at. Sorry about the camera work here. Man, that's about where I need to be. Get straight on the line here. And you'll notice that it is a little bit longer now than my original line. And I think what happens is that the pipe actually stretches out, obviously, when you bend it. But that's okay, because I'm probably going to have to cut off, you know, a diagonal line here to make sure that it sits up flat against the rock slider. So if you take a look at this bend, you know, it's not too bad. It didn't pinch it too bad. One thing I will say about this Schedule 40 pipe, if you notice, is that it does dent it. Like the rollers on the bender, because it's such thin walled, you know, that it does dent it a little bit, unfortunately. But now all I got to do is I got to bend the other side, and we'll see how this thing fits. Alright, so check it out, guys. For not having very much experience with that tubing bender, I feel like it turned out pretty well. So notice this is about where I want it right here. I got my lines drawn out, and so yeah, I mean, it fits pretty well. And so the next step, I kind of wanted to show you this. The next step is, you guys actually notice, I mean, that's how close I got it. Here's my little diagram here. So theirs goes all the way to the end right there, and all the way to the end right there. It turned out pretty good. So I feel like the next step is, I actually kind of got started. I was playing around. I don't have any kind of tubing notch or anything, so I was just kind of cutting angles in it. But I measured, and I wanted this to be 2.5 inches. That's what I originally measured, because that's how far I wanted the rail to stick out. So cut 2.5 inches, did a crude little notch, which I could probably make better. And you know, that's going to be the piece right there. And so this piece is essentially going to you know, be welded to the slider like this, actually probably like that. And then I can put the rub rail across it. I think I'm going to do 3, because again, I like the look of my old rock slider. So I'm going to get to cutting out these pieces, and then I think I can start tacking this thing together so I can get this project moving. Alright, you guys, well, I got this thing tack welded up where I want it. I got the ends tacked here. I got my first cross piece in the middle tacked up, both ends. And I measured it out, you know, my 56-degree length, and I got it exactly where I wanted on the slider. And I wanted to show you one thing. I didn't want to do like a just perfectly 90 out. I actually wanted it angled kind of up. And the reason why is I think it looks good, kind of adds character to it, but also when you angle this rub rail more, I think that it actually helps performs a little bit better, because it helps actually slide off obstacles and doesn't quite stick out as far. However, you know, I was really close to it interfering with the door, so I couldn't angle it too much. I was able to get it. Let's see if I can focus on this. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's just under 10 degrees on both sides. So it is slightly angled up, which I think looks kind of cool. And also I got my little cross pieces cut out. They're 2.5 inch. What I really got to do now is get these pieces, and you know, they're kind of tight. I have to kind of hammer them into place a little bit here. Get these pieces on here, and I'll get that tacked. And then once I get everything exactly where I want it, I can actually start burning this thing in for real. Alright guys, here it is, the final product. I skipped a few steps in my filming process, but as you can see, I got all three of the cross sections put in. I welded everything in for good. And then I went ahead and painted it as well. And so there's the final product. And so now I have a full 2x6 rock slider where I replaced the rocker panel, and I did that in a previous video. I'll go ahead and link that video down in the description. And here is the final product with the rub rail included, and you know, I think it turned out pretty well. Alright you guys, well thank you for tuning in to Muddy Beards. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, share, tell your friends. Check us back for more videos, and we'll see you on the trail. I'm playing around to make sure I'd have the right one. Thank you, Saxon, for walking straight through my workplace.